Listen, that furnace beneath your feet, it has been running since October. It will not stop until March. You already know what the bill looks like at the end of the month. But this weekend, for $4, 40 minutes of your time, and materials you can find at any hardware store, you can heat a room through a January night without touching that thermostat once. No machine, no bill, no contractor. I sat in an Amish farmhouse in Walnut Creek, Ohio last February. 19 degrees outside, 68 inside. No furnace running, no electric baseboard, no propane smell in the air. When I walked in, I stood still for a full minute because I could not explain what I was feeling. Then the old man pointed at the windowsill. His name was Eli. His grandfather built the house in 1923. And what was sitting on that windowsill was 4 clay flower pots, 2 tea light candles, and a small iron trivet his wife had gotten from her mother. He called it the winter shelf. I had seen versions of this online. I had dismissed every one of them. What I had not done was stand in a room where it had been running for 6 hours while the wind outside was cutting at 19 below. The temperature at the windowsill, measured with the digital thermometer I carry in my coat pocket, was 71 degrees. The temperature 6 feet away, near the door, 63. That is when I sat down and asked him to explain it from the beginning. What Eli described is not a trick. It is thermodynamics. Specifically, it is the principle of radiant thermal mass, the same principle that has heated human dwellings for 4,000 years before the gas company decided there was money to be made convincing you that you needed their pipes running through your walls. A candle flame burns at approximately 1400 degrees Celsius at its hottest point. A single tea light produces roughly 80 BTUs of heat per hour. That sounds small, and in open air, it is. The heat rises, disperses, and is lost to the ceiling, but a clay pot changes what happens to that heat entirely. When you invert a clay pot over a candle, sealed at the bottom with the drainage hole left open at the top, the pot absorbs that radiant energy. Clay, fired at high temperature, is a dense thermal mass. It does not let the heat pass through quickly. It holds it. It stores it. And then it releases it slowly, steadily, in all directions, as long-wave infrared radiation. That is the kind of heat that warms objects and bodies, not just air. Your furnace heats air. Air rises, air stratifies, the warmth pools at the ceiling while your feet stay cold. Radiant heat from a thermal mass warms whatever is in its line of sight. The floor, the furniture, the person sitting 3 feet away, the way the sun warms your face on a cold, clear day, even when the air temperature is 30 degrees. The Amish have understood this for 2 centuries. The Romans understood it before them. The Koreans built it into their floors under the name Ondal. The Chinese called it the Kang. Every civilization that ever survived a cold winter without fossil fuel infrastructure knew some version of this principle. The version Eli showed me costs $4. Here is what you need. Go to any hardware store or garden center. Buy 3 unglazed terracotta flower pots. 1 large, 1 medium, 1 small. Unglazed is essential. Glazed clay has been sealed and will not breathe or transfer heat the same way. Unglazed red terracotta, the plain kind, the cheap kind. The 3 pots together should cost you between $3 and $5. Buy a small pack of tea light candles, the plain white unscented ones. A pack of 50 costs about $2 and will last you weeks. Buy a metal trivet or find a small iron grate, something heat-safe that will hold the bottom pot elevated above the candle flame by 1.5 inches. You may already own this. That is the entire material list. Under $4 if you shop carefully. Under $7 if you buy everything new. Here is how you assemble it. Place your trivet on a fireproof surface, a ceramic tile, a stone slab, a cast iron skillet turned upside down, never wood. Never directly on carpet. Place 1 or 2 tea light candles in the center, lit. Invert your smallest pot and set it directly over the candles, drainage hole pointing up. Invert your medium pot and set it over the small one so the 2 pots nest together with a small gap of air between their walls. Invert your large pot and set it over the medium one the same way. You have now built a 3-layer thermal capacitor. The candle heats the smallest pot. The small pot radiates into the air gap between itself and the medium pot. The medium pot absorbs that heat and radiates into the gap between itself and the large pot. Each layer of clay holds the heat longer and releases it slower and more evenly than the last. The outer surface of the large pot will reach temperatures between 140 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit within 20 minutes. It will stay at that temperature continuously as long as the candle burns. It will continue radiating heat for 40 minutes after the candle goes out entirely, and it does this silently, with no electricity, with no gas line, with no moving parts, with no thermostat to fail, with no serviceman to call. Now, I want to tell you about the part that made me genuinely angry. In 1974, during the oil embargo, the United States Department of Energy commissioned a study on low-cost supplemental heating methods for rural and low-income households. The study was completed in 1976. It documented the terracotta radiant mass principle in detail, with measurements, with safety guidelines, with cost comparisons showing that a family using this method in a bedroom could reduce their overnight heating bill by 30 to 40%. The study was filed, it was not distributed, it was not summarized in any public guidance document. It was not included in any energy conservation pamphlet that went out to American households during the decade when heating costs were destroying family budgets across the country. I know this because a retired government archivist named Dennis Howell reached out to me after my last video. He spent 22 years at the Department of Energy. He told me the study existed. He told me where to look. And when I looked, I found it. What I also found was the memo that accompanied the filing decision. The memo, dated March of 1977, noted that widespread distribution of the report might create, and I am reading directly here, concerns among natural gas and heating oil stakeholders about the impact on residential consumption patterns. They buried it, not because it did not work, because it worked too well. Between 1973 and 1983, the American heating industry went through what energy economists now call the consolidation decade. In 1973, there were over 600 independent manufacturers of residential heating equipment in the United States. By 1983, that number had dropped below 90. The consolidation happened through patent acquisitions, through lobbying for new building codes that small manufacturers could not afford to meet, through a coordinated public relations effort run by an organization called the Residential Comfort Alliance, funded by the major gas utilities and the large furnace manufacturers, whose stated mission was consumer education and whose actual function, documented in a 1981 Federal Trade Commission inquiry, was to position mechanical heating systems as the only acceptable standard for American home comfort. They produced materials for home economics curricula. They sent representatives to county extension offices. They funded magazine articles declaring open flame supplemental heating to be a fire hazard, a carbon monoxide risk, a sign of poverty. Some of those concerns are real. I will come back to them. But I want you to understand that the campaign was not about safety. It was about market share, because a family that heats their bedroom with a $4 terracotta assembly on a fireproof tile does not need a new furnace, does not need a service contract, does not need a gas meter upgrade, does not need anything that anyone in that industry sells. Let me be honest with you about what this does and does not do. A 2-candle terracotta assembly heats a small room. It will take the edge off a bedroom, a home office, a bathroom, a small kitchen. In a well-insulated space of 200 to 300 square feet, with the door closed, it can raise the ambient temperature by 8 to 12 degrees over the course of several hours. It will not replace your furnace. It will not heat a great room or an open floor plan. It is not a whole house solution. What it is, and what Eli showed me in that farmhouse in Ohio, is a targeted tool, a bedroom tool, a tool you use at night in the room where you sleep so that you can turn your thermostat down from 68 to 60 degrees for the 8 hours you are unconscious and not notice the difference, because the room where you are actually present is still warm. The average American household spends $1,900 a year on heating. Roughly 30% of that cost is overnight heating of the whole house. If you sleep in one room and heat that room with a $4 setup on a fireproof surface, and you drop your thermostat 8 degrees for 8 hours, you will see that number change on your next bill. The man in Walnut Creek had been doing it for 41 years. Now, safety. I said I would come back to this, and I meant it. There are 3 rules, and if you follow them, this is as safe as burning a candle on your dinner table. Rule 1. Always place the assembly on a non-combustible surface, a ceramic floor tile, a stone trivet. A cast iron pan turned upside down. Nothing wooden. Nothing plastic. Nothing that can absorb or conduct heat to a burnable material beneath it. Rule 2. Never leave it burning unattended in a room where you are asleep or absent. The tea lights burn for 4 to 6 hours and go out on their own. But you light them when you are awake. You let them run while you are present in the room, and you verify they are out before you sleep. The same way you would verify a candle on your table before bed. Rule 3. Keep 12 inches of clear space around the assembly on all sides. The outer pot runs hot, not fire hot, but hot enough to ignite paper or light fabric if they make contact. Those 3 rules are the same rules that apply to any open flame source in a home. The reason the system got labeled dangerous in the 1970s and 1980s had nothing to do with the actual incident rate. It had to do with the industry that needed it to be dangerous. I want to close with something Eli said to me before I left that farmhouse. I had been there for 3 hours. I had measured the room temperature 6 times. I had photographed the assembly from 4 angles. And I was packing up my thermometer when he looked at me from his chair by the window and said, in that particular Amish way that lands like a closed door, "My grandfather paid nothing to be warm." He said it without bitterness. He said it the way you state a fact about gravity. His grandfather paid nothing to be warm. His father paid nothing to be warm. He has paid almost nothing to be warm for 41 winters. And somewhere between his father's time and yours, someone decided that was a problem that needed to be solved by selling you something. This weekend, before you do anything else, go to the garden section of any hardware store. Buy 3 terracotta pots. Buy a pack of tea lights. Find a ceramic tile in your garage or your kitchen. Set it up in one room. Run it for 3 hours. Measure the temperature before and after with any thermometer you own. Then leave a comment below telling me the number you measured. Because I read every one. And I want to know if your room behaved the way that farmhouse in Walnut Creek behaved on a 19-degree February afternoon. If you believe this knowledge belongs to you, not to a gas company, not to a utility billing department, not to a trade association, subscribe to this channel, not for me. Subscribe because there is a generation of Americans quietly putting back together the things their grandparents knew and their parents forgot. And every piece of it matters. In the next video, I'm going to show you the 1952 window sealing method that drops overnight heat loss in an existing home by 40%, using materials that cost $8 and take 1 afternoon to install. The Amish have been doing it since before the war. The Department of Energy documented it, and then they stopped talking about it. I will see you there. Until then, light the candle. Measure the room. Remember that the most powerful thing you can own is knowledge that does not require a monthly payment.